Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your hosts are me, Bob Dale.
And me, Nadine Royal. We're a couple of friends who met in the pub and developed a friendship based on our mutual love of booze, podcasts and pub quizzes. We met in the Settle Inn in Stirling, and that's where we record.
Each week we both tell a story of something twisted. One long one and one short one. We decide who goes first.
Based on the flip of a coin.
Which I have here.
It's a 50p this week.
Yeah, I was digging in my pocket while we were doing that.
Well, you disclosed to me last week that you'd found the Twisted Britain coin that we used originally.
I did find it, yeah.
Where is it?
Dunno.
Cool. Great.
I will find it, and I will stick it to myself, and then we can't lose it. How you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm alright.
I've been back to work this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I had a little week off. I went on a small holiday. Small vacay.
And props to you for making the pub quiz this week.
Thank you very much.
Off the plane.
The skin of my teeth.
Yeah, off the plane and in the pub within an hour. Well done.
That's how you do it. That's commitment.
Well, it's because you wanted to have a drink, but we'll not go much further than that. How's your research gone this week?
Yeah, really good. I'm quite excited about my story, but it's not a very nice one.
Oh, great.
Sorry.
It's all right. Well, mine is supposed to be the short story this week.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I've printed it smaller than I normally did to try and trick myself, it's not particularly short, so I'll maybe just batter through it.
So what's that? You made a mistake?
Not a mistake. What I've done is I've over-researched.
Over-prepared.
Well, it should actually have been a long story, but I couldn't find another one in time to do. So, but, well, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll have an extra long Twisted Britain this week.
Oh, it's some special for no good reason.
It's nearly end of January special. How about that?
Nice.
In fact, this is coming out in February. This is a February special.
We're doing so well. Right, flip the coin.
Right, okay, here we go.
Right, go. Tails, you go first.
Heads, it's you.
Oh, okay. Should we just wire right in?
Let's go for it, yeah.
Okay. So, my story, I don't know, you might recognize it. My story is the story of a young woman called Lesley Whittle.
Name doesn't ring a bell.
No? So, this is a request from my mum. My mum
nice.
suggested this one.
Hi, Mummy.
Because I was on the phone to her and I was saying, I'm not sure what I'm going to do for my story this week. And she went, oh, you should do this story. It was, big when she was younger, when she was, a young teenager. And she says that she, remembers it quite well.
Oh, cool.
So, Lesley Whittle was born in 1957 and was the daughter of Dorothy and George Whittle. George Whittle was the founder of Whittle Coaches. He was a respectable kind of businessman around the place.
Okay.
Lesley was kidnapped on the 14th of January in 1975 when she was just 17 years old. At the time of her kidnapping, Lesley was a student at Walford College in Wolverhampton. She was kidnapped from her home in Highley, Shropshire, by a man called Donald Nielsen, who was a known criminal at the time. Lesley's body was sadly discovered on the 7th of March 1975, so not even a month later. The kidnapping and murder of Lesley Whittle dominated the national headlines for 11 months. So, that's what my mum was saying. She just remembers it being in the news and everybody talking about it.
Yeah, it was one of these stories that just didn't go away for a while.
Yeah, and it was, my mum says that she even remembers her mum and her gran saying to her, ooh, be careful when you go out, don't talk to strange men.
Oh, right, okay.
It was, a massive thing.
It was so big that it kind of influenced everybody.
Yeah, definitely. The investigation involved over 400 police officers from the Shropshire, Staffordshire and West Midlands police forces, as well as the Metropolitan Police. So, the reason that Lesley was kidnapped was because her dad, to avoid estate taxes, gave 3 houses plus £70,000 in cash to his wife Dorothy, £107,000 to his son Ronald, and £82,000 to Lesley, his daughter.
So he was more than a respected businessman. He was really well off.
He was doing well for himself, yeah. So he died in 1970, aged 65. And his estranged wife, Selina Whittle, was really upset after not receiving anything from him, even in his will.
Oh, okay.
So it kicked off this big kind of thing. And eventually she tried to begin legal proceedings to obtain reasonable provision from her husband's estate. And the story was eventually picked up by the Daily Express newspaper, which kind of brought it to the public eye.
Right, okay. But who do you bring legal proceedings against it? Just against the estate itself?
Yeah, against his estate, yeah.
Right, so, and then of course, one of the daily rags gets a hold of it.
Yeah, because she was this estranged wife. I don't think they were, estranged doesn't mean divorced to me, It just means that,
Well, he's gone and she's still there.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So Donald Nielsen became enraged by the treatment of Selina when he heard about it in the newspapers, and he decided he would either kidnap Dorothy, the wife, or the son Ronald, and he'd hold them to ransom. He's just an unrelated guy. He's just a lunatic.
Oh, he's just a madman.
Just a madman who read the story in the Daily Express.
And thought, that's not right, I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah. Mental, huh? So Nielsen at this time, had already committed over 400 burglaries and 3 fatal shootings by 1975.
Oh, lovely man. One of the bad bastards.
Just one of those good ones, you know? So Nielsen's first 3 murders occurred the year before, during these post office robberies that he would like carry out.
Okay.
During the robberies, he shot dead 2 sub-postmasters and the husband of a sub-postmistress. By the way, best job title I've ever heard.
Sub-postmistress. It says more about you than it does about them. But
he also brutally battered the sub-postmistress out of Baxenden in September 1974. And Sidney Grayland in Langley, West Midlands during November 1974 as well. So there was like 3 fatal shootings, lots of burglaries, and like a couple of brutal beatings as well.
And he got away with these post office robberies?
Yeah, they didn't catch him. They didn't know who it was. So the Baxenden murder gave Nielsen the nickname the Black Panther, which is much too cool a name for such an arsehole.
It's a really cool name, isn't it?
It's a cool name. During an interview with a local television reporter, one of the victims' wives, Marion, described her husband's killer as so quick he was like a panther. And he also supposedly wore a black balaclava, say that 3 times quick, and dark clothing, which furthered like his nickname. So at the end of the interview, the reporter signed off with, "And where is the Black Panther?"
Was he also from Wakanda? No?
I was wondering when you were going to go there.
I was going to try and not do it, but
couldn't help it. I said it too many times. So that's where like his nickname came from. So after hearing of the Whittles and their money, he estimated that they could easily afford £50,000, and that's what he decided the ransom would be. And he then spent the next 3 years planning the kidnap.
So he picked a number out the air because he knew they were rich, and he knew that they could afford, in air quotes, to give him that. Yeah, and he thought it was right to do so.
Yeah, and he just thought they were like greedy and they'd like not given Selina any money and fuck these people.
And it wasn't his place in the slightest to make that decision anyway.
Nope, he just got real hot about it though.
Nice.
And spent 3 years planning the crime.
I don't think I've spent 3 years planning anything.
No, me neither.
Especially not this podcast.
So on the 14th of January 1975, Dorothy Whittle returned to her house in Highley, Shropshire at about 1:30 in the morning. She found her daughter Lesley sleeping in her bed and proceeded to take 2 sleeping tablets so that she could go off to bed herself.
Right.
Later that night, Nielsen broke into the Whittles' home after cutting the telephone line to ensure that no burglar alarm would go off, and he broke into the house through the garage.
Does that stop a burglar alarm going off?
I have no idea. I would not know how to wire a burglar alarm, but maybe back then?
Maybe, I mean...
Because I think they're super secure now, like they're not wired through your phone lines now.
No.
But I think they used to be, maybe.
I suppose we've heard a couple of cases where they cut phone lines before they went and did anything to kind of stop anybody getting there or like phoning out or whatever. Yeah. So maybe it was just a thing to do.
Yeah, just the thing to do if you're going to break in, apparently. So after he broke in through the garage, he accidentally encountered Lesley, who's then 17. She was only wearing a dressing gown and slippers, and he decided to kidnap her instead. So it was like opportune, really.
Ugh.
Yeah. So he was going there to get Dorothy, the wife. But he'd planned maybe her or the son Ron, but Ron lives elsewhere. Right. Okay. So he was there to get Dorothy.
So it turned into an opportune thing, essentially.
Bumped into her downstairs and was just like, well...
You're coming with me now.
Yeah. So Nielsen gagged Lesley and took her to his Green Morris 1100 car, where he tied her up and ordered her to lie down in the back seat.
Right.
Nielsen then drove Lesley to Bathpool Park in Kidsgrove, Staffordshire, where he forced her down into a drainage shaft of a nearby reservoir.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I told you, it's not nice. So inside the shaft, he placed a hood over her head, removed her dressing gown, leaving her completely naked, and then tethered her to the side of the shaft by a wire noose around her neck.
Ugh.
Yeah, and he left her with a mattress and a sleeping bag in the dark.
How do you plan that? Like...
Yeah.
You've got to have a broken brain to go through that process to go, right, I'm going to take her to this drainage shaft, and I'm going to put a wire around her neck.
Yep.
And, yeah, it takes...
Yeah, well, 3 years it takes.
Well, it takes 3 years and a broken brain.
Yeah, fuck yeah. This guy's
and no internet, so he that's all legwork.
Oh, yeah. It's fucked up, huh?
Wow.
The next day, Dorothy became quite concerned when Lesley didn't come down for her breakfast, so she went up to her room to wake her, but instead found her bed empty, her clothes for the day untouched, and a ransom note, which was typed out on a 6-foot-long strip of Dymo tape.
That would be...
That's some serious Dymo.
I hate typing the labels on them. We do them.
I love a Dymo.
Yeah, but could you imagine typing 6 foot of it?
No. You made one mistake, you have to tear it off, start again. That's a whole roll of Dymo tape, probably.
We label stuff up at work with them. Just, mainly for ease, and it's always 2 words, and I get them wrong so often. Whether it's the typeface is too, but anyway, we're getting too much into this.
No. So, the ransom note demanded £50,000 and warned the family not to contact the police, but to await a call at a phone box at the Swan Shopping Centre in Kidderminster later that evening.
Right.
By the way, I'm very pleased that I've got a reason to say Kidderminster.
I actually met a couple on holiday, on our honeymoon from Kidderminster.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
So, Dorothy immediately called Lesley's brother Ronald, but found that his phone was dead, and in a panic, she drove round to his house in her dressing gown, but she found Ronald to be quite safe with his wife Gaynor at their home.
Right.
They all returned to the family home, where they found a second copy of the ransom note inside a box of Turkish Delight in the lounge.
He typed it out twice.
Yeah. I've got so many questions about that bit, but why inside a box of Turkish Delight? And also, what were the family doing that at that time in the morning somebody opened the Turkish Delight box?
If you found a random Turkish Delight box in your house, would you
I don't know if it was
it?
random. I think it was just... Oh, maybe he did put the Turkish Delight in there. I read it as in the Turkish Delight was there previously and he put it in there. But maybe he did bring the whole box. That's fucking weird.
Yeah, that is weird, because the lady loves milk tray, not Turkish Delights. Sorry.
I can't... Oh, weird.
Have I broken you?
Fuck's sake. So after finding that Lesley's dressing gown and slippers were missing, which confirmed that she had indeed been taken, Ronald Whittle, the brother, immediately called West Mercia Police, the local police force.
Yeah.
So the investigation was led by Detective Chief Superintendent Robert Booth of West Mercia Police.
I know a Robert Booth.
Weird.
You've met him as well. He's been at the quiz. Yeah. I'll show you a picture later.
Wonder if it was him. Don't think it was.
No, he wouldn't plan anything for 3 years.
Well, Detective Chief and Superintendent Robert Booth of West Mercia Police was assisted by Scotland Yard, who sent a team that was led by Commander John Morrison and included DCI Walter Borum. So they were the 3 big names of the case.
Right.
The story quickly leaked to the press and was carried on the evening television news that day, which was the 15th of January, so the day after she'd been kidnapped. Yeah. So that evening, no telephone call came to the Swan Shopping Centre, to the phone box that they'd been told to await a call to in Kidderminster. And it wasn't until 11:45pm on the 16th of January, so this is the day after that, so 2 days after Lesley's been taken.
Yeah.
Not until 11:45pm that night did any contact happen from Nielsen. So he played a tape over the telephone, which was a message recorded by Lesley telling her family that she was all right, and that somebody from her family was to go to the phone box in Kidsgrove, Stoke-on-Trent, to retrieve a second message that was behind the backboard of the phone box.
Hearing a recorded message of the person that's been kidnapping must be terrifying.
Yeah, it must be absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
So I think he sent that to their home phone, and they received that call.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fucked. After waiting a day, a day's gone by where you were meant to get this phone call at a phone box.
And especially because it's a recorded message, you can't even talk back to them.
No.
That's pre-thought.
Yeah.
It's predetermined that I'm going to use a tape recorder to do that.
Yeah, it's fucked. So the family agreed that it was definitely Lesley's voice in the recording, and they decided that the brother Ronald would be the one that goes to the phone box, and the police decided that they would monitor him from a radio network.
What age was Ronald? He was married and everything, wasn't
he?
I
don't know. I didn't get his age, sorry.
He was the older brother.
Yeah, he's the older brother. So she was 17, and he's already living with his wife and stuff elsewhere. So
he's a good couple of years older.
Yeah, at least, yeah. So they decided that he would go and that the police would monitor him with a radio network, and that they would be able to get to him within 2 minutes should they need to if something went down. But it took the police 2 hours to put their network into place after that phone call and to make all their arrangements. So Ronald didn't actually leave the police station in Bridge North until 1:30 in the morning, like 1:30 a.m. on the 17th of January.
Right, yeah.
So this is now day 3.
Yeah.
She's gone. So Ronald goes, and he has with him a suitcase packed with £50,000. So they have the money.
Yep.
And he drives to Kidsgrove, which takes around an hour and 15 minutes from where he is. Unfortunately, though, it took him even longer than that they'd expect, because he doesn't know the area and he got lost.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so it takes him a little bit longer, and then when he gets there, he searches for a good 30 minutes until he finds the Dymotape message, like in the phone box. And this Dymotape message instructs him to go to Bathpool Park, which is about 5 minutes away from where he is now.
Right.
So he goes there. So like it says on this Dymotape, go to the top of the lane and turn into no entry, go to the wall and flash lights, look for torchlight, run to torch, further instructions on torch. So he's like, now to go to Bathpool Park and like go to like turn into this no entry bit, go to this bit, look for a torch, blah blah blah.
Genuinely on like a treasure hunt.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, treasure hunt's not even the right words, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's on a quest.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, really fucked up.
So like this is like so planned and put together. So Ronald arrives at Bathpool Park 90 minutes later than they'd planned, because of him getting lost and stuff, and then searching for the Dymotape and all these like things that they didn't foresee. And he turns into the no entry sign as he's been instructed to. But in the dark, he doesn't see the low wall that edged the railway bridge, and he drives right to the end of the lane, so he's now at the wrong part.
Yeah.
He stops and he flashes his lights, and he gets out of his car, and he doesn't see this torchlight that he's meant to see. No. And he like shouts and stuff, but there's like no answer, and there's just no sign of anybody. And
you wouldn't know what to do at that point. Like, you wouldn't reverse back along the lane.
No.
And repeat.
No. You'd just be panic. Sheer panic after panic.
You'd be in panic from the start.
Yeah.
So this just something not happening adds to that.
Oh yeah, 100%. So Ronald then left the park and met up again with the police at an arranged meeting point. And West Mercia police officers decided to put the blame for this failed operation onto the Staffordshire police, because apparently at one point during like all this time at that night, one of their patrol cars drove through the area and could be clearly seen, so they think it like spooked the kidnapper off.
Yeah.
So West Mercia immediately are like, oh, that's Staffordshire police's fault, like not ours.
Well,
when it was them leading the...
That's a failing in a non-joined up police network.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah.
So there was also a courting couple, which I've just written in brackets, dogging?
like the way you say it, dogging.
Dogging. A courting couple.
They'd have shit themselves when the lights flashed.
or got excited.
Or come to the car.
Not who you expected. That's the quote from the article I read. A courting couple in a car had also parked nearby where the ransom was to be left, and they also think that might have been a reason. Like, he saw them there as well and was like, "Oh, this is like a setup." So there's a possibility the torch was never put there. Or... Yeah, so they don't know, but they're just pointing all these fingers at what it could have been.
Yeah.
A subsequent search of Bathpool Park by the police doesn't turn up anything at all. No evidence, nothing. And there's like, just nothing's contributed towards the investigation at all at this point. So really it just been like one massive cock-up of like a ransom drop. It just did not go to plan at all.
And just a series of like mistimed steps. Yeah.
Yeah, just shit. So a week later, which when I was writing this I got really excited about, because a week to the day would be the 24th of January 1975, but it's the 24th of January today.
It is.
So it's the anniversary of this event. So on the 24th of January...
I don't know if it's a recognised anniversary.
Well, no, but it is for Twisted Britain.
But it is for Twisted Britain, okay.
So a week later, the West Midlands Police contact West Mercia Police, because on the same night of the failed ransom drop, a car had been left near a Freightliner railway terminal in Dudley, which isn't very far away. And a security guard called Gerald Smith had been shot in the back 6 times and was now in hospital recovering. But what was interesting about this was that in the car that was abandoned, they found a cassette tape with Lesley Whittle's voice on it.
No, the one that had been played? Or?
I don't know if it's the same one or a different one,
right.
but
it's definitely,
nonetheless,
yeah. It's
Lesley Whittle's voice on a recorded tape.
Yeah.
That's his car, yeah. Also in the car... it is a different tape, because the tape is her asking her relatives to cooperate with the kidnapper, so it's like a different recording.
It's just one he's not got around to using or something, right.
So they also find in the car her slippers, a roll of plastic tape, that's it, her slippers and a roll of plastic tape and the cassette, and these all ultimately link Nielsen to the kidnapping. In the end, they become
it's
hard evidence. Yeah. So ballistic evidence and fingerprints on the cartridges, also used at the Freightliner shooting, show that the kidnapper used the same pistol as the post office murders that had been attributed to the Black Panther.
Right, okay.
So then suddenly it becomes, not only has this guy kidnapped this girl and shot this guy in the back 6 times, he's also the Black Panther. So it becomes this massive deal.
Right, yeah.
So
it's really clever. I actually have been at a ballistics lab and I've seen how they do the kind of checks on the bullets and all that kind of stuff under the microscopes, looking at the...
That's so cool.
It's incredible. It was petrifying being that near that many weapons, but it was really, really interesting how accurate they can be.
Yeah.
That, slightly side note, but the guy that was showing us stuff that it was a weapon that had been seized maybe 10 years ago, but they could relate that to a crime that had happened 12 years previously because they had... the same markings on the casings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really impressive science.
Yeah, it's so important, and it leads to loads of convictions.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the time.
Sorry, I was just...
No, that's the coolest. So they suddenly realize that the kidnapper is also the Black Panther. So on the 10th of February, 1975, so this is a good few weeks later now, the news blackout that had been instated during the investigation was lifted. So at some point they put this blackout down because they weren't getting anywhere and everything was going awry.
Right.
But on the 10th of February, they lift it. And then later, on the 5th of March, so another few weeks later, Chief Superintendent Booth and Ronald Whittle, the brother, appear together on national and local television trying to make a plea for Lesley to be released safely or for the kidnapper to get back in touch or just anything.
That horrible news conference that's almost a template of...
Yeah.
If you're out there, please give her up.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So the next day, after this television conference, a headmaster at a local school told the police that a pupil had brought him a piece of dymo tape that read, "Drop suitcase into hole."
Oh, right, okay.
So, other pupils had also found a torch wedged in the grills of what was locally known as the glory hole.
Can you try and say that without laughing?
No, it's so funny.
Why would the locals call it a glory hole?
Just for fun, I think. They also found a torch wedged in the grills of what was locally known as the glory hole, which was a capped ventilation shaft of the old Harecastle tunnel, which I looked up is a canal tunnel.
Ah. Right, okay.
So... the boys who found the torch in the Bathpool Park region had given it to the headmaster several weeks before, and then this other boy brings in this dymo tape the day after this news conference, and suddenly it becomes clear to the headmaster, oh shit.
That's what this is.
That's what this is. And before, nobody had even realised that anything that was significant at all.
Yeah, well,
so without them...
I suppose, as far as they were concerned, they just found a torch.
Well, yeah, so who cares?
And they wouldn't know the whole backstory as to what that would have been.
Yeah, the torch would have been the signal for Ronald to know that he was at the drop.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so, ultimately the plan would have been for the torch to be flashing, Ronald to see it, go over to where the torch is flashing, and there would have been the dymo tape saying, "Drop suitcase into hole," into this ventilation shaft of this old canal tunnel.
Yep.
And then whatever next part of the plan was.
Yeah, and then stage 3 of the quest.
Exactly. So the next day, which was the 6th of March 1975, police started a second thorough search of Bathpool Park, starting with the glory hole.
Once I'd like you to say that without laughing.
Police started a second thorough search of Bathpool Park, starting with the glory hole, within which a detective constable found a dymo tape machine.
Nearly.
So they search the glory hole, they find the dymo tape machine and a roll of dymo tape. And an inspection of the second shaft of this canal tunnel revealed absolutely nothing. But they've come across a third shaft, and in this shaft, which is the deepest of the 3 and was once used as an air ventilation shaft for Nelson's coal mine, was then uncapped. And they go in... they go in and then they find out that the shaft is subject to HM Inspectorate of Mines regulations, which means that it has to be first checked for gas before you can safely send people down there, because it's a ventilation shaft.
Because it's a ventilation shaft for a mine, yeah, of course.
So that happens quite late in the day, so they can't go into it that day. So it's on the Friday, which is the 7th of March, that they eventually...
bureaucracy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I totally get the health and safety aspect of it. Now, they would have dropped a camera down.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's such a good show, actually.
Rather than, you would never wait till the next day. You'd either just send a guy down in breathing apparatus or stick a camera and a light down.
Yeah, see what's down there.
It's such horrible bureaucracy.
It's shit. It's shit. So that happens on the Friday, the 7th of March, after the gas tests have been passed. Police officers and mine rescue staff then can go down. So they go down and they access it by a vertical ladder, which goes 22 feet down onto the first landing of this shaft.
Okay.
So super deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the first landing, they find a broken police torch, which was dropped the day before by one of the police officers.
Okay.
And then they look over the ledge, and a further 45 feet down is a second landing. And on the second landing, they find a cassette tape recorder. A further 54 feet down was a third landing. So we're now 22 plus 45.
67.
Plus 54.
120, 121.
So that's the third landing.
Yep.
Down there, they find a rolled up sleeping bag that was acting as a pillow, a yellow foam mattress, and a survival blanket.
So they reckon he was down there? Or
no.
She was?
She was.
She was. I was just harking back to when you said they'd put the noose round her and all that. I wouldn't have imagined at that point he'd have gone, here's a wee sleeping bag for you.
Well, he left her, when he put her in the noose and stuff, he left her with a sleeping bag, so there was slack in the noose.
Right,
so she wasn't stood on tiptoes for the whole time. I think there was slack in the noose that she could move around. It was
more a leash than a noose then. Well, it was a noose, but it was more a keep you here than you're going to die on it.
Yeah, unless you... Yeah.
Right, okay.
Well...
It wasn't saw. Well, okay.
So a further 7 feet down from this landing was the bottom of the shaft, where they found Lesley's body hanging. From a steel wire, and she was only 7 inches from the floor.
He's measured that.
Yeah.
Precisely. And she's no idea that she wasn't going to reach the ground.
Fucked, huh?
That's really, that almost breaks your brain, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's grim. It's so grim.
It is Saw.
Yeah.
He was more than a bad bastard. It
was disgusting.
He was a really twisted, horrible human being.
I told you it was a sad one.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sorry. Let's just press on, I suppose. So, inspection of the floor of the shaft turns up 3-inch strips of used elastoplast, which had acted as a blindfold for Lesley.
Wow.
Also, a pair of brown size 7 trainers, more dymo tape, a cassette tape, a microphone and lead, a thermos flask, blue cord trousers, and a reporter's notepad.
So he'd been down there, and that's where they'd recorded all the cassette tapes that they'd used.
Yeah. So out of all of these items that were recovered from the 3 parts of the shaft, so including all the stuff they found on the other landings, like the mattress and stuff, and the cassette tape and all that kind of thing, the only one that they recovered a partial fingerprint from was the reporter's notepad, and after 4 months of running prints from the national database, they conceded that there was no match.
Right, so he'd wiped everything, or he'd worn gloves or something.
Whatever, but he left a partial, and not even that turned up anything.
Right, okay.
After 4 months of trying.
Which is odd, because if he's been a criminal in the past, you'd think there'd have been something. But then, I suppose you said earlier that he hadn't been caught for a load of stuff, so maybe they didn't know who they were looking for.
Well, exactly.
They obviously didn't know who they were looking for, but they didn't know that they were looking for somebody that was an existing criminal. Well,
they knew, because remember after he shot the guy at the train line,
so they knew it was
his car. They know it's the Black Panther guy, so they know it's him that they're looking for, but they don't know who the fuck this guy is.
But they didn't know who the Black Panther was. Right, yeah.
So, he then, Donald Nielsen, the kidnapper, the Black Panther, subsequently becomes Britain's most wanted man at the time.
I would hope so.
Yeah. And in December of 1975, 2 police officers spot a man who's acting suspiciously in Mansfield, and it turns out that it's Nielsen.
Yeah.
So they just they kind of think that he's suspicious looking and approach him just because of that. It turns out that he was armed with a sawn-off shotgun, and he was then arrested with the help of several customers in a nearby fish and chip shop.
Good on them.
But apparently, reportedly after a very fierce fight. His face is all punched up by the time he's arrested. They get into a mad fight.
Oh, poor man.
I know.
Good on the customers.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
we've said this before, there's two types of people in this world, and I'm glad that fish shop was full of one type of them.
Yeah, that are helpers. Yeah. Do you know what? I want nothing more in life than at some point to be able to use the phrase "citizens arrest" and arrest somebody.
Yeah, I know what's going to happen is you're going to get drunk one night and try and arrest me.
Maybe.
Maybe tonight.
So during the investigation into Nielsen, after they've arrested him for being shifty and tackling him in a fish and chip shop, he actually confesses to the kidnapping of Lesley, and he gives an 18-page statement to DCS Harold Wright, who is head of Staffordshire CID, and Commander Morrison of Scotland Yard, with the statement written by DCI Walter Boreham, who was involved in the original investigation.
He was one of the original officers.
Yeah. And then during his trial in the Crown Court at Oxford, Nielsen's defence lawyer suggests that Lesley had accidentally fallen from the ledge and had hung herself, and that in Nielsen's care he had fed her chicken soup, spaghetti and meatballs, and bought her fish and chips and chicken legs.
That kind of...
That's the defence.
Yeah, so that's the defence, but I don't know, in my head, if she's only 7 inches from the ground, you look at that slack and go, I can reach the ground from here.
You think she jumped?
I don't think she jumped. I think she maybe tried... I don't know, I'm totally speculating. Yeah. And the only information I have is what you've given me. Is maybe she tried to ease herself off to try and get down to see if she could get out, but then it was too far and it was too much. Yeah. I don't know, it's a really grim thought.
That's fucking grim. I hadn't even thought about that.
To slip and fall is bad enough because you would hope it would be quick, but to lower yourself onto it's even worse.
Well, to be fair, the third ledge down to the bottom of the shaft was only 7 feet. It's not even that far a fall.
Yeah, but I know, but yeah, we don't know how taut the wire was or that kind of...
I don't want to think about it too much. Regardless of this amazing defence, in July 1976, Nielsen is convicted of the murder of Lesley Whittle. So Good. Just a little bit over a year after he kidnapped her and she was murdered, he's convicted of the murder. And he is given a life sentence. And then he's also handed a total of 61 years running concurrently for other crimes that he's committed. And then... 3 weeks later, he's convicted of the murder of the 3 post office workers and given 3 further life sentences.
So he's not getting
4 life sentences plus 61 years. Fuck you, Donald Nielsen.
Now, is concurrently running alongside?
Ooh. Yes.
So,
no, I suppose. Well,
the 4 life sentences would do it anyway.
Well, yeah. I don't know if you need the other
25
61,
years each or something, and they're not. So, yeah, you don't need to add this. Well, the adding of the 60 years is the significance of it is the fact that they're
throwing the
doing
book at
something. Yeah, absolutely.
The offences regarding the shooting of the security guard Gerald Smith at the train line are left on file though because Smith died more than a year and a day after the shooting had taken place.
Right.
So they just leave it on file because you can't really be convicted of the murder of somebody when they die over a year after, even if it's from the injuries from the crime. Okay. I think. That's what this seems to imply.
Right, okay, yeah, I don't know.
Also, then I've written in brackets, 6 times in the back. He was shot 6 times in the back, and it took him a year and a day to die. Or over that.
Good on him.
Crazy shit.
Yeah.
So, it's widely believed that Nielsen pushed Lesley off of the ledge in the drainage shaft, which strangled her. An alternative scenario that goes around is that Nielsen wasn't present when Lesley died, and that he fled on the night of the failed ransom collection after returning to the shaft and finding her dead and being like, shit, now I don't have anything.
I think that's probably what I would lean towards. Yeah.
Or that he fled after getting spooked by the police car, by the canoodling couple.
Went back, killed her.
No, just fled and just left her in the shaft, and she at some point fell off the ledge or tried to leave or something.
That's the worst scenario. So, well, all of them are bad, but yeah.
Pretty grim, any of it. The post-mortem examination shows that Lesley hadn't died from strangulation, though, so she didn't die when she was hung from the noose, but that's not what killed her. But what had actually killed her was she died instantaneously from vagal inhibition, or vagal inhibition, which I then had to look up.
I'm glad you did.
So, vagal inhibition is a condition that causes sudden death to occur within seconds or a minute or two due to minor trauma or relatively simple and harmless peripheral stimulation of the vagus nerve. So, the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
The vagus nerve historically is cited as the pneumogastric nerve and is the 10th cranial nerve, which interfaces with parasympathetic control of the heart, lungs, and digestive tract. So parasympathetic is like your kind of natural, how your body just does stuff without you thinking, like you're breathing and your heart beating.
So in kind of basic English, it's the part of the spinal column that makes your...
I think it's behind your ear, it's in your brain. It's a cranial nerve, so it's in your brain.
So it's
cranial's
probably...
head.
Yeah, I know cranial head, thank you. But it's probably in that spinal column. Both of us are touching the backs of our necks right now.
No, I think it's like kind of like up in here. When I googled all this, there was like a diagram, and it looked like it was kind of in behind your ear somewhere, but like more towards the base of your head.
I wonder if it's the same thing that, like the long drop. I know the long drop snaps your neck, but I wonder if that's what sort of finalizes it.
Maybe. Apparently, like you can just have this like if you have this like sudden trauma to this nerve. Because it operates your parasympathetic, it interfaces with your parasympathetic nerves.
Yeah.
That will just kill you because your heart and stuff just stop how to work. They just stop knowing how to work.
They don't get the signals anymore.
Yeah, they just stop.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what your vagus nerves does. So it's pretty important. So that's what the postmortem reveals, is that that's actually how she died, was that her vagus nerve was some way traumatized.
Probably suggests then she did fall or something.
Yeah, something happened, and that's how she died. So, actually, here's some more info. A pathologist, Dr. John Brown, reports that this would have been induced by high blood pressure in her carotid artery.
Carotid.
Thank you. Oh my god. That's right. So this would be induced by high blood pressure in her carotid artery, caused by the constrictive wire loop around her neck, triggering an alarm to her brain via the vagus nerve.
Yeah, and she's in a pretty high pressure situation.
Yeah.
Which would raise your blood pressure ever so slightly anyway.
So the brain's response to this urgent signal for reduction in artery pressure would be to radically slow down the heart, and when that failed, her heart just stopped altogether.
A terrible way to go, isn't it?
Disgusting. But apparently it's pretty, like, that sounds like it would have taken ages, but apparently your body does it quite quickly. Like, the constriction on your neck panics you, your blood pressure raises, it goes way too high, your carotid arteries way too pressurized, if there's any your vagus nerves like, bah, and just freaks out, and that's kind of it.
If there's any saving grace in that, I suppose it's the fact that she suffered for the day she was down there, but the actual agony wasn't prolonged.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to think so. The pathologist also reports, though, that Lesley weighed only 7 stone when she was found, and her stomach and intestines were completely empty, so she didn't get spaghetti, meatballs, or fish and chips or chicken legs.
No, she didn't at all.
And she'd lost a considerable amount of weight and was in fact emaciated.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
So she didn't die on the first day.
No, she was alive down there for a while.
Yeah, and then eventually, like, the noose was too tight or something happened.
Something triggered. Yeah.
So it's pretty fucked. Apologies for that bumbling through of medical termination.
Thanks for your biology lesson this week.
So, over a year after Lesley initially went missing, Nielsen was in prison on 4 life sentences and 61 years. The police were widely criticised for their handling of the case, and the fact that Donald Nielsen had not been arrested sooner, considering his prior crimes also. Like, this guy was just on the loose for fucking years.
Yeah.
It's also believed that the police bungles were what led to the drop that night going so badly wrong. Like, the finger was pointed at them, and it was like a shoddy investigation, really. And as a result, Chief Superintendent Robert Booth, who led the investigation into her kidnapping, was demoted from CID to just a uniformed beat officer.
I mean, it's not entirely his fault.
No. He didn't do great, though.
He didn't do great, but Nielsen was obviously quite clever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Planned it for 3 fucking years.
Yeah.
But saving grace. In the early hours of the 17th of December 2011, Nielsen was taken from Norwich Prison to Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital with breathing difficulties, and he was pronounced dead the very next day. So he died a prisoner. Fuck you, Nielsen.
Good riddance to bad rubbish.
So that's the story of Lesley Whittle.
You're right, that was quite a horrible one, but it's incredibly interesting because you never ever, like, we've done, coming up to 20 episodes now, and some of the cases we cover, all of them are horrible or twisted in some way, but you never think about these kind of almost movie-esque.
Yeah, 100%. It's totally
crimes
mad.
Happening.
These are the kind of crimes that when I research, I love researching them and hearing about them, and hence why we're here doing this podcast. But one of the things is these kind of crimes that scare the fucking life out of me. Because this guy had absolutely no relation to this family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely nothing. He read a story in the Daily Express and lost his shit and planned to kidnap them for 3 fucking years, stumbled upon Lesley in her nightgown and slippers and fucking took her instead, and she died alone in a fucking shaft. That is absolutely terrifying.
It is, and I'm glad the man's dead. But I think what's alright for us is neither of us have any money.
True.
So there's no point in kidnapping us.
Yeah, don't bother. If anything, I'll just be a bloody nuisance as well.
That was brilliant. I really liked that.
Thank you.
No, I really, really enjoyed that.
I tried to put as much. I tried to I read loads of articles on it.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Cross-reference,
especially
as
if it
much
was
of it as I could.
The story of the year.
Yeah, it was
thing.
huge.
I bet there was loads.
Huge. The BBC have the longest article on it.
And
loads
thank
of
you for the biology lesson in the
You're
middle.
welcome.
That was.
I had to that, by the way, was as simple as I could write it. I had to I read whole pages all about the vagus nerve and learned quite a lot. I was like, whoa.
I'm even going to let you off with no Nadine's word of the week, just Nadine's biology lesson of the week.
Thank you.
No, that was good. I really enjoyed that. That was good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I've got a huge amount to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go and refill my drink.
Yeah, let's do that.
And we'll be back with I'd like to say slightly nicer story, but it's pretty grim, but it's got a nicer ending.
Okay.
Both of us have quite a screwed up face just now, but we'll see you in a minute anyway.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello all, my name's Paul and I'm the creator and host of the True Crime Enthusiast podcast, a show that looks at and recounts a variety of cases from the shores of the UK. Some are solved, some are unsolved, but they always tend to be the more obscure and unfamiliar. On the True Crime Enthusiast podcast, you'll find tales ranging from teenage vampires to sex-crazed killer farmers, from exorcisms gone wrong in the most extreme manner to the most horrific mask-wearing maniacs that you can imagine. Each tale is as true as the sky is blue, and the UK claims the lot. So if you're intrigued, then why not join me each week as I trawl through the archives for these and much more. You can find me on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much wherever you grab your shows from. So I hope you can join me and become enthusiastic about the True Crime Enthusiast podcast.
So that's us back. Glasses refilled.
Mm-hmm, ready to go.
You've got 2.
Double fisting.
Yeah. Strap yourself in. Like I said, this isn't it's nowhere near as bleak as yours was.
Okay, good.
It's a really weird story, and it's apparently one of the most longest-standing unsolved cases of all time.
Okay.
Well, in UK anyway.
Okay.
It might not be of all time, but it's definitely up there. So this is the story of William Herbert Wallace and his wife Julia. William Herbert Wallace was the man they didn't hang.
Ooh. So
William Herbert Wallace was at the time of the crime was a 52-year-old insurance salesman.
I know the story.
For the Prudential Assurance Company, which is still the Prudential these days.
Oh, the one just outside Stirling?
Indeed.
Hey.
So William was born in 1878 in Cumberland, and he left school at 14 and trained as a draper's assistant. So a draper's assistant being a man that would make clothes.
Yeah.
He worked for Messrs. Whiteway, Laidlaw and Company, and they made outfits for the armed forces.
Cool.
And for the colonial forces and for India and all that kind of stuff as well. So he worked for them for a while until 1903 when he transferred to Calcutta in India, and he worked for the firm there making forces clothing for the Indian army. Mm-hmm. He was only there for a couple of years before he started seeking a transfer to the Shanghai office because his brother lived in Shanghai and thought, you should come over here and work. So he transferred there in 1905. And another 2 years later, in 1907, it saw him return to England because he had kidney problems. And he came back to the hospital to have it looked at and eventually had that kidney removed.
Oh.
But he continued to have issues related to that for the rest of his life. Kind of at this point after that, there was really not that much of note about him until kind of 1914-ish. He did get a job with the Liberal Party as an election agent for the Harrogate area in 1911, and he spent some time there, where he actually met Julia. Julia Dennis was her maiden name, and she was a woman who was 17 years his elder, which contemporary accounts state that she was about the same age, but then research afterwards has shown that she was actually 17 years older than him. So he would have, he'd have been 23 and she'd have been about 40 at this time.
My face went through a dramatic change there, because you went, she was a woman who was 17, and I thought you were going to say years old, and I was frowning, and then you went, his elder, and I was like, surprise face.
No, he wasn't that bad a man. So his job in the Liberal Party kind of came to an end at the outbreak of war in 1914, because all the elections were put aside, all the kind of political harmony in the face of the Great War and all that kind of stuff. Here is where he, through his father, secured his position with the Prudential, and him and Julie moved to Liverpool in 1915, moving into 29 Wolverton Street, Anfield. Like I say, not a huge amount happened in his life at this point, other than that kind of background stuff. Mm-hmm. So we jump on here to 1931. The only thing I would say is he was a really avid chess player. He had a load of hobbies. He was a fiddle player. He wasn't a shy retiring man by any means, but chess was his thing, and he was a member of a club, the Liverpool Central Chess Club, which doesn't exist anymore, and isn't to be confused with the Central Liverpool Chess Club,
how silly
or
of
the
me.
Chess Club of Liverpool.
Oh, sorry.
It was the Liverpool Central Chess Club.
I see.
So anyway, on the 19th of January, 1931, in the evening, with Wallace now 52, he attended a meeting of the chess club to play a game that was scheduled. It was part of a tournament. Mm-hmm. When he arrived at the cafe that they were playing the games at, he was given a message that had been taken from him by the other members in the club about 25 to 30 minutes before he arrived. The gist of the message was that could he visit 25 Menlove Gardens East, Liverpool, the following night, the 20th of January, at 7:30 to discuss insurance with a caller.
Odd.
Well, it is, and it isn't, because that was how insurance happened then. He was a salesman of insurance, but he was also a collector of insurance money and a payer of insurance claims. So he was the kind of forward-facing part of the insurance company. So the caller that had left the message at the cafe had given his name as R.M. Qualtrough.
Oh.
Qualtrough. Qualtrough? Qualtrough. Qualtrough.
I so know the story. I'm so sure that I know the story.
Well, jump in at any time.
No. Continue.
What you haven't noticed so far, that is one of the reasons I picked this case, is his name is William Wallace.
No, I didn't pick up on that.
And I was like,
care less.
William Wallace killed somebody in 1931. That doesn't sound
it
right.
Was the ghost of William Wallace.
So anyway, the following evening, the 20th of January, Wallace took a tram across town to go and visit 25 Menlove Gardens East. During the journey, he was agitated and repeatedly asked the conductor and the ticket inspector to tell him when his stop was, because he basically didn't know where he was going.
Right.
He badgered them the whole way round, saying, I need to get off here, blah, blah, blah. And when the conductor shouted to say, "This is your stop," he got off making a point of saying, I'm a complete stranger around here. He spent a while looking for the address, kind of 45 minutes in the area. During this time, he went into a newsagent's to say, "Where's Menlove Gardens East?" They didn't know specifically. They knew where Menlove Avenue was, so they pointed him in that direction. He asked people in the street, and at one point he stopped a police officer to ask where Menlove Gardens East was. He didn't even just stop the copper and go, "Excuse me, do you know where this address is?" He recounted the whole kind of story to him, saying, I've got this and I'm out. I've got this message, I'm out on this insurance call. I need to go here and I've got a meeting at 7:30. And he repeated to everybody that he had a meeting at 7:30. I have to be there.
Somebody's building an alibi.
Just you wait. So he was basically on a wild goose chase the whole time. Because Menlove Gardens East doesn't exist.
No.
Menlove Gardens North, West and South exists because Menlove Gardens is a triangle.
Can I make a prediction?
You can, please.
So I think that whatever's gonna happen, that's not happened yet, which is definitely, like, the murder of somebody or other. Presumably his wife, I'm gonna say. So, I'm gonna say that his wife ends up murdered on that night when he's supposedly meant to be at Men's Love Garden, and he sent the note himself, because what better way to set an alibi than to send yourself on a wild goose chase to a place that doesn't exist? Because if you sent yourself to a street that does exist, like, imagine if I was gonna do it, and I sent myself to Glasgow, and I was like, oh, where's Bath Street? Probably within the first 5 people I ask are gonna go, it's there. Like, somebody's gonna know exactly where it is so quickly. But if I turned up and I was like, oh, where's Bath Street Gardens? People are gonna go, what? I don't know. And then you have to ask as many people as possible, making sure that there's loads of fucking witnesses. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Did I just shit on your parade?
No, absolutely, you did not. I like what you've said, and I didn't interject there at all, because I knew where you were going, because it's... I'll keep telling, but it's where a lot of people went.
Oh, I'm excited. There's a twist. Go.
So he went looking for Men Love Gardens East, like I said. Men Love Gardens East, sorry. But like I say, it's a triangle, and originally on my notes, I'd had a picture from Google Maps to show you how, like, it obviously didn't exist if you knew the area.
Right, okay.
I'll show you a picture in a bit. We'll use it as one of our teasers or something. So he used his initiative, and he went to Men Love Gardens West, 25 Men Love Gardens West, and asked the occupants there if they knew of a Mr. Qualtrough. They'd never heard of him either, and neither had any of the other people that he stopped in the Men Love Garden area. So after spending a good amount of time looking, he kind of went, right, I've been the butt of a shitty joke here.
Yeah.
I'm going home. So he gets back in a tram and heads back across town. As he returned to his house, he couldn't get into via his front door or the back door, as they were both locked. But his next door neighbours, the Johnsons, were leaving their house around about 8:45 that evening, and they met Wallace outside the house. And he was a bit like, I can't get in my house, my keys don't work. So they followed him around, being good neighbours. They were like, oh, we'll give you a hand. So they followed him around to the back alley where the back door was. And when they got there, on the way, he basically said to them, have you noticed anything weird this evening? They were like, nah, no, nothing out of the ordinary at all. So as they got around to the back of the house, he popped his key in the lock, and it worked. So the Johnsons waited outside while Wallace went in to try and see what was going on and why were the doors locked and why couldn't I get in and all this kind of stuff. Moments later, he re-emerged from the house saying, come in and see, she's been killed. So inside the house, they found Julia Wallace dead in the front room, lying on the floor, having had her skull beaten in by 11 blows to the head.
Oofda.
There was blood up the walls. I mean, like 7 foot up the walls. And Wallace is claimed to have said, they've finished her. Look at her brains.
Ugh, what a thing to say.
So Julia was lying face down, clutching a Macintosh jacket underneath her.
Oh, odd.
So they went back in the kitchen, and Wallace noticed that a locked cupboard in the kitchen, where he kept all his insurance collections money, had been broken into, and £4 had been stolen. And I used my favourite tool, my inflation calculator.
Can't wait to hear it.
330 quid.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so it's nothing. This is, like I said to you earlier, I was relaying the kind of outline of this story to Rosalind before it came out. And this is the bit that gets me, is whoever's done this, whether it be William or a nun, has only stolen £330.
Yeah, for the sake of the life, that's bullshit.
They had a look around the house. Sorry?
I was just quite astounded by the fact that £4 was worth 330. That's crazy town.
Average of 5% inflation every year since then. Anyway. Nothing else had been taken in the house, including the money that had been in Julia's purse was still there.
Odd.
So at this point, Mr. Johnson, the neighbour, I think his name was John Johnson, took control of the situation and went, you two stay there, to his wife and William. Stay in the kitchen. I'll go and fetch the police.
Nice. Good job, John Johnson.
So the police were on the scene within 25 minutes, and they made a very kind of cursory search of the house. Nothing much in the house that they'd found had been disturbed, and they didn't collect much evidence. Now, there's a kind of caveat to why they did that at the time. In 1919, there'd been a massive strike in the police force in the Liverpool area, and huge amounts of people, like almost half the police force, had been let go. So that led to loads of inexperienced and underqualified...
Like junior officers.
Yeah, kind of junior officers, and like even forensics teams and stuff like that, being people who were like, oh, you know how to do a plaster.
You're in charge now, sir.
Yeah, exactly. So there was huge amounts of underqualification in roles. So I'm not surprised by any stretch of the imagination that they missed things, because these weren't people that were honed at their skill as such. However, the one thing so they missed a whole load of things, but the thing that stands out to me most that I just kind of almost cringed at while reading was they brought in a forensic, air quotes, expert, a guy called John McFall, and he was there to basically kind of put a time on the death and kind of assess the body and all that kind of stuff. He used basically his gut feeling for everything.
Shit.
And he used a method of of time stamping the death that had been long outdated. Basically what he did was he looked at the state of rigor mortis the body was in and worked back from there, ignoring the fact that loads of things could have happened in between and it's not a direct line.
Any other factors, stuff like that.
So he used this and he placed the time of death at 8 p.m, which was 45 minutes before Wallace had returned home, as had been witnessed by his neighbours. Mm-hmm. McFall did later change that under police kind of questioning, but no further tests had been carried out in the body. He just went, aye, fine. It was 6 o'clock now.
This guy's a shithead.
A real shithead.
I mean, we've all been there when you've been in a job that you're not really sure what's going on and you're just like, wing it, it'll be fine. This is not the job to wing it in.
No, he thought he was an expert, though.
Oh shit, okay. Even worse.
So during the search of the whole house, and the forensics on the body, William was sat in the kitchen and basically related all of his whereabouts that evening to the police that were on scene. He told them about the call to the club the night before and where he'd been on the trams and all that kind of stuff. So no murder weapon was found at the scene. However, the cleaner later reported that a fire poker and an iron bar from the parlour had been missing. I don't know why you've got an iron bar in the parlour.
Let's not judge.
But it could have been, I suppose it could have been for anything.
Well, I don't know what an iron bar anywhere is for.
Crowbar or something.
Propping open a door.
I don't know. So none of these were found at all. Well, the fire poker was found about 80 years later.
Shut up.
It had fallen down the back of the fire through a gap and was found during refurbishment of the place.
That's so cool.
So 80 years later, it was only 7 or 8 years ago.
Shit.
So at this point, obviously, William Wallace had become the prime suspect, as is such a way
customary
in
it's
these
always
things.
The husband or the boyfriend.
And one of the reports I read was that the kind of leading officer that came in to interrogate him and kind of put the crime together had been at the pub for most of the evening. So came in and was like, it was the husband that did it. without any evidence
just
at all,
gut
actually.
feeling all over this.
So he became the prime suspect, but he maintained his innocence throughout the whole time. And in my opinion, and others that I've read, the thing that kind of corroborates his innocence is the time frame.
Yeah, 100%, yeah, because if it's slap bang 8 o'clock, he's on his merry way home. That's perfect.
So even if it was 6 o'clock, we can...
Yeah.
So let me cover these bases.
Go.
So at between 6:30 and 6:45 that evening, Julia had been seen alive and well by the milk boy who was around collecting the milk money, and he knew what time it was because there was a church steeple with a clock on it nearby. So that's why there's that kind of 15-minute gap, because he obviously collected the money, went away, saw the time, maybe didn't make a note of it, but it was like, he'd be on his round, so he'd know.
Yeah, you're keeping time, you know what you're doing.
So he knew it was between those two times. And at 7:06, William Wallace was on a tram to go to Menlove Gardens East, because he was seen by the conductor and the ticket collector, and then subsequently the police officer, the newsagents, and all that kind of stuff. So if he was the one to have done it, he would have had only 20 minutes to murder her, clean himself up, and run for the tram. So the most damning evidence was that the call to the chess club had been from a phone box only 300 meters away from his house.
This is some bullshit.
But if you look at the journey he would have had to gone on to get from his house to the club, he would have been on a tram at the time of a call. For him to arrive at the club at the same time that he was supposed to. Now, he was there on time for a scheduled game. So he turned up on time for the game.
Okay.
And the chess club had a posting in the phone box, or next to the phone box, of who was playing. So there's no confirmation specifically of him being on the trams or anything at the time of the call, but the timeline itself states that he had to be on the way somehow, so he couldn't have physically made that call.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm with you.
So anyway, the police built their case around Wallace, using the phone box, his kind of odd demeanour on the tram, his constant reiterating to people that, I've got a meeting, I need to be somewhere at 7:30. So they were kind of going on the fact that he made too much of a point in things. Yeah. And they made a big point about the kind of strangeness of the doors. He tried both the locks and neither of them worked. And then suddenly with witnesses there.
Well, now my back door's open.
Now I can go in, so he can... so they were basically saying he had people there when he discovered the body.
Yeah.
They also set up...
I'm with the police on this, like, in terms of, like, what my prediction was and stuff. Heavy suspicious. Because it is odd as fuck.
They also set up a reconstruction to see if he could have physically killed Julia, cleaned himself up, and then made it to be on the tram to the insurance meeting. What they did was they got a very young, fit police officer to spend the time it would have taken to
bludgeon somebody to death. With 11 blows to the back of the head.
Clean yourself off, and then run.
I mean, 7-foot blood sprays, you're going to be a hell of a mess.
You're going to be a hell of a mess. And then the young, and I couldn't find who this guy was, but it was just quoted as a young, fit police officer, only just made it to the tram. So a 52-year-old with kidney issues, he ain't making it.
Nah, I forgot about his kidney.
So my favourite part about the police's theory as to what could have possibly led to him being quicker in the cleanup and all that kind of stuff was the Macintosh jacket. So Wallace had, in the police's eyes, managed to not be covered in blood and clean himself up so quickly because he was naked and only wearing the Macintosh jacket.
Which he whipped off so quick that it went under her body as she fell to her death.
Or he stuffed it under her. Either way. So they claimed / told him during interviewing that, you like to dress up with just wearing the jacket and naked.
You've got a fetish for naked jackets,
when
right?
You and Julia are just in the house playing the fiddle and singing and stuff together, you're always just cutting about in that naked jacket, right?
You just love a Macintosh, huh? Right on your skin there, no?
And he was like, no. no, that never happened at all. But it was submitted as evidence for the court. So he was taken to trial based on the evidence the police had put together. However, his employer, the Prudential, was completely convinced of his innocence.
Nice.
And they paid for his representation in the court.
Good employer.
So all the evidence being circumstantial and in some point lies on the part of the police. After a 4-day trial, it took the jury only 1 hour to find him guilty.
Shit.
The judge sentenced him to death by hanging, which was
customary,
and he said, "You, William Herbert Wallace, have been convicted of murder upon the verdict of a jury. Have you anything to say why the sentence of death should not be passed upon you according to law?" And all he said was, "I'm not guilty. I cannot say anything else."
Huh. Well, I guess if you were innocent, what else would... Yeah, you'd just be like, well, I didn't do it.
So, in a completely unprecedented move, the Court of Criminal Appeal overturned the conviction.
What, just based on that?
Well, based on the fact that he couldn't have physically been in the places where he said he was supposed to be. They basically said that you had not managed to prove his guilt without reasonable doubt. There's still a huge amount of doubt. Not just doubt, in my opinion. He didn't do it.
That gives me quite a lot of faith in them.
And he was set free.
Holy shit.
From what would have essentially been death row. Well,
not as it. He was going to die.
Yeah.
And they were quick snaps about it back then.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was going to say. His date was scheduled for,
next week.
Yeah, it was a couple of months or 6 months or something like that, and they overturned it pretty quickly. The Prudential gave him his job back. And he went back to his job a very miserable man.
Well, yeah.
And not long afterwards, he moved out of Liverpool, and he sadly died in a house in the countryside only 2 years later. No one has ever been charged with the murder of Julia.
I don't know what to feel.
I've got a couple of bits that I would like to speculate on,
you go.
if you let me. So, I don't believe he could have made it on the trams, having killed her at 6. Well, he couldn't have killed her at 6 because she was seen at half 6. So if she was seen at half 6 on the button, he would have had to get on a tram at 10 to 7. So he's got 20 minutes to kill her, clean up, and leave. And that's if the milk boy was bang on 6:30. The only other option was he'd run for a tram further down the line, but that would have been something like a 2-mile run. He's not doing that. I would like to say he's just an odd guy. So I think that he was worried about not making a meeting. So I don't.
Business. He's a businessman.
I don't think the stopping the copper and recanting the story. It was maybe just him going, "I need to get there, and this is why."
Yeah.
Which is, we've all been there. We've all been worried about making somewhere. And
no, I'm an oversharer. I overshare with strangers all the time.
Yeah, I know. I don't even know you.
Like, I can't even think of, like, a real example. But, like, going into a shop and being like, "Oh, so how are you?" And then, "Yeah, good, you?" And you're like, "Oh, well, day from hell." And you just, like, wire all this information into a total stranger. And then you're like, "Oh, sorry, you didn't need to know that. Can I just have those cigarettes? Thanks, bye."
Yeah.
Like,
So the bit that's a bit weird, not all, I mean, all of it's weird, but the bit that gets me the most is if he was innocent, which I believe he was, and the timeline fits that he didn't do anything, he got back to the house just, say, 8:30, and when the neighbours saw him at 9:15, and he's been at the front door, keys not worked, he's gone around the back door, keys not worked, and he's come round and he's been standing in the front garden scratching his head.
Yeah.
And they've come out and gone,
"What's up?
What's up, mate? Do you need a hand?" He's told them the story, walked around the back door, and the keys worked. And he's gotten in. And
you know what? That is not that fucking... Like, it's suspicious in the context of your wife's inside dead, but if she hadn't have been, you'd have been like, "Well, that's annoying." Like, things like that, I've legitimately... Like, I'm trying to think of, like, real examples again, but, like, 100 times at work or something. Like, say even here in the Settle-In, when I was a barmaid, Lesley would be like, "Oh, can you go to the cellar and get more Budweiser?" "Sure thing." And then I'd come back and be like, "There's no Budweiser in there." And she'd go, "Yes, there is. I bought an entire crate." And then you'd walk in together, and the second you walked in that second time with Lesley, I'd be like, "Oh, there it is right there. I just didn't see it the first time somehow." Or, "I can't open this door. Can you come and help me?" And then you're like, "Oh, now it's open. That was weird." Like, things just happen.
Yeah, and there's always the case of, did he try the back door key in the front door and the front door key in the back door?
A fumble.
Because, he was pissed off when he got back because he'd been made an arsehole.
Yeah, you're just trying to get into your house, you're not paying that much attention.
Or, here's where my brain went.
Right.
And a couple other people's did, apparently. What if the murder was in the house?
Oh, I just thought about that a minute ago, too.
What if the murder's in the house?
Holding the lock on the inside, or
the doors are both locked with a snib on, or a bolt on it, or something.
Yeah, he's done something, yeah.
Guy's gone, front door,
he's heard him rattling, and he's like, shit
himself. Yep. He's come back around the front door, tried it again, maybe, and the guy's gone out the back door.
But how did he lock it?
But you don't need to lock it.
Oh, because it's on the snib.
Or even if it's not on the snib.
Depends what kind of lock it was.
Well, but William has gone round and expected it to be locked, so he's going to automatically put the key in. Try and unlock it, and it unlocks, or it's already unlocked. The key turns, and so my pure speculation on this is he's tried the front door. Both doors have been locked. He's tried the front door. The guy's got spooked. Has only managed to steal the £330.
Why go to what was it? That in a cupboard?
In a cupboard.
Why would you go to the cupboard before the purse? That's fucked. Or was he interrupted in the
since you've asked, I've got a bit here I was going to leave out.
Okay, no, I want it.
But, so there is a theory on who it could have been. Now, like I say, nobody's been charged with this. This was completely, I suppose, still an open case. Nobody knows who made the call, whether the call was, well, the call was real.
Yeah, but
but nobody knows who it was. It was obviously somebody that had been either watching the house to watch William leave, or... So, Richard Parry, right?
Okay.
Name you've not heard before in here. Richard Parry was a kind of young acquaintance of the couple, And he used to help out with the door-to-door selling of insurance, and he used to collect money and take it back to William's home.
So he would have known where the money was.
Parry was, by all accounts, a pretty odd and relatively unstable guy with a history of petty crime.
It's not boding well.
He was also a kind of amdramish actor. And we said he had the ability to change his voice easily.
Oh.
He had a reputation from stealing from his employers, William being one of them. A shortfall in the insurance money was pretty much always accounted to Parry. He always explained it as, it was a simple mistake. Sometimes these things happen. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But he kind of seemed to be quite a charming, horrible, slightly more intelligent. I don't want to use the word sociopath, but
yeah, okay.
A thief, a compulsive liar, and had once in the past been accused of attempted rape.
Ooh.
So he's the kind of leading... He's not a suspect, but he's the leading theory as to all of this.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's a nice... What? I can't believe you were just going to leave him out.
Well, I was going to leave him out because it's not... Like, he's never been pursued.
He fucking should have been.
Yeah, okay. All right. I promise I will never leave anything out again.
Thank you. Fuck, that's really good. I love a good mystery. That's really annoying, though. But then surely, right, so do we know... Is there evidence... And do we know exactly what time he was on his way back after not finding Men's Grove East Gardens or whatever the fuck?
So we know he arrived at the house.
So we only know that, though?
Well, yeah. We know he got to Men's Love Garden East on time for a meeting at 7:30.
Yep.
He spent approximately 45 minutes looking. So that wouldn't take you up to 8:15. It would probably take you to maybe 8 o'clock because he'd be early for it. He'd been seen on the tram at 7:06. So say he arrives. Now I should have checked the tram timetables, but anyway,
deep diving.
Let's say he arrived at 15:15.
Okay.
Roughly.
Okay.
He spends 45 minutes looking, including going into newsagents, asking the cop or talking to folk in the street and all that kind of stuff.
Then he's got to get back
on the tram, back home. Now, if he's arriving... So it's probably a 25-minute tram journey.
Okay.
So he's getting back off the tram, 25 past, 8:30, walk back to the house.
Okay. So it can't be like an after. He didn't do it after either.
Oh, no. I mean, when I said he only had 20 minutes to do it in the timeline that fits, with
that's the only
corroborated evidence of people seeing him, so 20 minutes is the only time it would have fit.
But then, if it was...
To do it after that would have been 8, 9, 10 minutes before the neighbour saw him. He
But then...
I've never been so sure reading this that somebody's gotten away with it.
But then you also gave, though, a 15-minute window for for the paperboy.
Yeah, so if the paperboy had seen him at quarter
past...
if the people... Sorry.
Oh, it was 2:30.
2:30.
Right, I've gotten muddled. No, fine. No, I retract what I was going to say.
If the paperboy had seen her at 2:45, William had already left.
He's gone.
At that point.
Yeah, no, I got muddled and thought it was 2:15 to 2:30.
To me, there was so many pieces that just say somebody else has done it. There's the listings of the chess games. So somebody going to that phone box knew he would be somewhere else.
But then, surely is that just like but then how would he... That's... I don't...
Great sentences there.
Like, no, I'm not going to accept that as any form of anything. That's just coinkydink.
Oh, hugely circumstantial, yeah.
Because you're not going to show up in a phone box and find a list of names of chess players and be like, that one, and somehow find out where he lives.
Absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that somebody has been aware of him being out and has used the evidence that he would be there for the chess game.
That it was in the same phone box. I think that's just...
Or
maybe the guy... I don't know.
No, I think it was probably deliberately at that phone box because it was close enough to the house to see William leave to know that he wouldn't have been there, but to know he was en route to...
Oh, right.
So that he knew that it would be a message passed on rather than getting William on the phone the other end.
Yeah, okay, no, fine.
At which point, the next day, all the timeline fits that Milk Boy saw her alive. He was on... Milk Boy saw her alive. He was on the tram. He saw a cop.
Yep.
you can't get much better evidence
witness, isn't it?
of being somewhere.
Yeah.
Got back in the tram, got back, neighbours saw him, found her dead.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It would have been much, it's a horrific story anyway, because they've never found her.
Poor Mrs. Wallace, Julia.
They've never found her killer. It would have been a much, much worse story, I think, if the crown...
he'd hung for it.
If he'd hung for it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what, though? Good that he got his job back and stuff.
Yeah, like you say, there was, like I said earlier, slight twist of happiness. Sadness has to come through all of these stories, sadly. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a Twisted Britain story, would it?
No, that's true.
That's the story of William Wallace and Julia Wallace.
Wow. Fuck me, that was a good one.
Yeah, we'll try and... Let's both try and be a slightly more upbeat next time. It's not going to happen, is it? Well, thank you very much to anybody listening.
Thank you. This was I think this was a bit of an extended episode on both our parts, but hopefully you've enjoyed it.
We've gone longer than we normally do. You can download it and listen to it whenever you want.
Pause it. Come back to it. Whenever you want.
Yeah, and I totally understand if you pause what we're saying.
Especially during my biology ramble.
If you have enjoyed what you listen to, please do give us a rating and a review wherever you listen to. It means a lot to us, and it doesn't just inflate our egos. It helps other people find us. Whether you... When you leave a review, it lets us flag up higher up in charts and searches and things like that. And it means that other people like you listening will find us. Also, if you have anybody that you know that you think might listen to us, please do point them in our direction.
Yeah, shout out to Phoebe Roebuck, who I knew from uni, who got in contact this week to say that she just only realised that we do a podcast and has started listening, and that she's introduced it to like 3 people at work or something. So thanks so much for that. That's the nicest thing.
We have our accounts on all the social medias. We are on Twitter.
Twisted Britain.
We are on Instagram.
Twisted Britain.
And we are on Facebook.
Twisted Britain.
Also on Facebook, we have a lovely discussion group, which you can find
at Twisted Britain Discussion Group.
Yeah, and we've had a whole load of new people join this week.
We've had a few new likes this week as well, which has been really nice also.
So we'll get on there just now, actually, and post a couple of bits and pieces and say hello to the new people. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we'll see you there.
Thanks.
Bye.